Welcome to Spotlight on the Arts. I'm your host today. My name is Michael McKeever. Now, today we're going to be talking about the role of the artistic director in theater. Joining me is our usual panel, the always wonderful actress and producer of Spotlight on the Arts, Miss Iris Acker. Just next to her is theater critic and founder of Florida Theater on Stage, Mr. Bill Hirschman. And last but certainly not least, the very talented actress, Miss Karen Stevens. Please join the panel and myself as we welcome our very special guest today, the producing artistic director of Palm Beach Dramaworks in West Palm Beach, Mr. Bill Hayes. Bill, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know if I like being center stage here.
And yet, my friend, here you are.
This is my first experience here, and it's 9:30 in the morning.
Oh, you gave away our secret.
That's right. That's right. It's not 6 o'clock on Friday night.
And it's a Monday. I'm in rehearsal, and it's a Monday.
There you go. Well, let's jump right into it. What exactly does an artistic director do?
You're going to start right out of the gate.
That's what I figured.
Well, I think there's the perception, the glamorized version, that I select the plays, I do the casting, and I get to direct any show that I want to direct.
But you do this these days.
I do that, and I think that's the scope of what most people think, the job is. It's also fundraising. Between Solon and myself, being the primary fundraisers, we're responsible to raise about $1 million a year just to operate.
Wow.
What does that mean? That means a lot of networking and schmoozing and wining and dining and just general networking. It means also being at most of my performances. I think when you go to the theater, I'm at 95% of those performances because I think it's important to be in touch with and touch our patrons, and that's how you generate those donors over time as well.
Well, it sounds like you're there like 24 hours a day.
Well, we're a bigger organization now. There's a lot more responsibility to keeping it alive and healthy, and so it has become a 7-day-a-week job. That's my choice to work 7 days. I just think there's just too much to the job, and it's kind of crucial. I work in tandem with the managing director because all the finances and the artistic go hand in hand, and we need to very much be on the same page with budgeting and that kind of thing. We also have now a staff of 26 full-time employees.
Wow.
Between the shop and the theater space, and they all have their own issues and needs and concerns that we have to address on a daily basis. And a lot of that goes not only to the managing director, but the artistic director. And also to move the organization forward, I get very much involved in long-range planning. I have some ideas of new programming that is important for our theater, including the next stage and phase of new play development and expanding our educational outreach. So there's all those elements that require an awful lot of planning. And also, just today alone, I was joking earlier about, when I'm in rehearsal, Monday is my day to do everything and catch up. Today I have this television interview, and then I have 2 newspaper interviews after that. Then I have an education committee meeting, and then I have a long-range planning committee meeting, and then I have a board of directors meeting.
And this is a light day for you.
Then I'm done. I go from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. today.
Wow.
And then I get to go home and hopefully have a martini. So maybe in between there, for lunch, maybe I get the martini.
Well, you also direct 2 of the shows every season.
Yes, but I'm finding to move the organization forward and to really focus on the administrative and planning end of things, that I have to continue to pull back. And that's been kind of my own personal sacrifice. 9 years ago, I was actively acting, and I miss it, but I can't. To me, if I do that now, it jeopardizes moving the company forward because, as you know, as a director, as an actor, it just requires such tunnel vision. Well, even now when I direct, I used to, right now I'm directing The Lion in Winter, and in the past I would have spent 6 months reading books and history books about it. Now when I'm directing, I take only like a month in advance that I have to cram my research and be ready.
Do you think it's going to get to a point where soon you'll just be the artistic director and you won't be able to be involved specifically with the project?
I think there's a point where I'll decide to direct one And I also think I think I need to always have that experience so I know what that experience is like for outside people coming in. And I also think it's important for the evolution of the organization to continue to have other guest artists come in. And so the organization doesn't only rely on Bill and only rely on Barry. Barry is a really strong part of this organization, but I need other outside directors. I think it just helps expand the organization.
Sure. We should point out that Barry is J. Barry Lewis.
J. Barry Lewis, yes, the resident director. And as I pointed out recently, he's been with us for 10 years.
Very nice.
And when you said Sue Ellen, you mean Sue Ellen Barrell, who is the managing.
She does, doesn't she? Yeah, she does. She's the managing director. I assume everybody knows. I'm sorry about that.
Your wife not only manages the theater, but I'm sure your life as well. Bill, what motivates you for play selection?
What motivates me for plays?
Why the plays that you select are selected?
Sometimes it's subconscious, and sometimes it's very conscious. And I'll use the one example when Obama became president. And there was this rise of hate groups throughout the country, Florida ranking #1. And racism reared its ugly head. And despite your political leanings, I thought that was a topic that needed to be addressed. And so that season, Master Harold and the Boys was a really beautiful, strong play that really gave the message of that. And then I made the commitment for the next couple of years that I was going to do plays that dealt with race. And then I went again the following season to do A Raisin in the Sun.
Yes.
This season, it became a very subconscious thing for me. I had dealt with a lot of families, including my own, that were split over money. And a lot of Palm Beach families that I knew that were big donors of ours were divided over their estates. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it was not a conscious thing for me, but I realized after the fact that I have 2 plays this season, The Lion in Winter and Dividing the Estate, about how money and inheritance divides families.
Well, I'm so glad I asked that question.
Yeah.
I really am,
and Sue Ellen pointed out the previous years that I did All My Sons and Gamma Rays and Proof and Master Harold, and there was this theme of parent. And surrogate parent and father, son, mother, daughter, father, daughter, that there was kind of something going on there, a subconscious thing, I think, for me.
But when you're selecting, first of all, let's start one real quick question, and that is, how far in advance are you deciding your season?
Well, it's never soon enough for Sue Ellen. That's for sure. She just hawks the heck out of me. But ideally for her, and it's about making her happy, it's December, January.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the next thing is, and we've talked about this before, there's a lot of things that go into your decision. Trying to keep to your mission, keeping your audience in mind, the cost, the number of actors. You can have a large cast, one show, but then you have to have talk a little bit about the various factors that go into not just going, God, that play speaks to me, but going beyond that play speaks to me.
Before I even think of a show, we have to do a budget. And we have to do the numbers and to determine how many actors can we afford to hire this year. I mean, there's a lot of other components to that regarding set and costs of living going up and costs of supplies going up, but that's the very first thing we do is a budget. And then, so I just use a round number of 35 actors I can hire for this season and still make a profit. One example, when we moved into the space, I wanted to do All My Sons because it was a large cast. I needed to have the wow factor, and it would demonstrate the body of work that we could do in this new space. Right. And I knew that I could have a lot of local actors in this show, which was really important to me because I'm always, very dedicated and loyal to those people because they're the ones that helped us grow and help build this organization. So that was important to have a lot of local faces in that to kind of help celebrate. So that was my big show. That was 10 of the 35 that I had balanced for the season. And then I had seen, I wanted to do something fresh that demonstrated in a different way what we could do in this space. And I knew when I went to New York that year that everybody was going to be doing Red. But not a lot of people were going to be doing the Pittman Painters. I already knew I could cast it. It was another large cast. And that was 8, 9. But it was demonstrated in another way how we could use this space, and I think it was a lovely production. And so we now have used 18. The shows I was and the shows I was leaning towards, and Master Harold was very important to me that year. So that's 3. And then I realized that this is a very male-heavy season. So it was essential to do something that could employ a lot of local actors. I was running out of numbers of how many actors I could use. And a play occurred to me called The Effect of Gamma Rays on Man in the Moon Marigolds, because bullying in schools was really in the news a lot in the last several years. So I thought, this is a nice fresh play. It's all women. And so that became an important, relevant piece of work. And then I decided the last show I didn't have a lot left, and again I wanted it to be centered around a woman. So I did Proof. But every play in that season was very relevant, but also demonstrated how we could use the space and allowed me to keep my numbers balanced. Did that answer your question?
Absolutely,
Wow.
very well.
Yeah.
It's very interesting to learn or to hear that not only is it a personal, does your personal take on these plays have an impact on it, but also there's definitely a business sense and a budgetary reason for picking them.
It's show business.
Well, there you go. The theater, Palm Beach Dramaworks, you guys have done such a gorgeous job in growing and developing and becoming this incredibly successful organization that you've become. But you've done it very steadily. You've done it. You did it at a really concentrated pace. Can you talk about that? About growing from your original space had what, 56 seats in it?
40-something.
Wow, there you go. And to develop now into this beautiful new space, which has how many seats?
218. We actually made this very large theater into a medium-sized theater.
Which is good though, because it's still a nice-sized theater, but at the same time, it's very intimate. I mean, it's a beautiful space, one of the best in South Florida right now. Could you talk about that, about the artistic choices?
We're not the best. No, I'm just kidding. Well,
He's with Zoetic.
well, that's part of our business philosophy is start small. A lot of younger companies go into these big venues and they can't afford to keep it operating, and you want to put all your money and your resources into the product. It's that simple. And you only have, it's cliche, you only have one chance to make a first impression. I think from day one you never saw a program that was on photo paper. You saw always high quality printing and just putting all our money and resources into the product. We also knew the nature of the kind of work we were going to do was going to be a slow build, because it's highly, hopefully, intellectual theater. So we did have to take it in stages, and we started with the 45 seats. We then graduated to the big 84-seat theater, and I got to tell you that I miss it sometimes, because then when I could spend more time with the art, but we spent about 7 years there, maybe even more,
With a
even 8
fabulous
years.
following.
Pardon me?
Every seat was always filled.
And by the time we moved on, we were running our shows for 9 weeks. Nice contract for the equity actors.
Tell me.
And I wish we could still give them that kind now. And so we waited till we were bursting at the seams. But it's just a business philosophy of starting small, do it in slow increments. It was interesting, too, the audience defined us. I learned early on not to underestimate people, and I always quote George Stevens, who said, the American people have the ability to think and the ability to feel. And I learned that really quickly in South Florida when we first did the American Dream and the Zeus story, and then people started coming forward saying, finally somebody in the community is reviving this intellectual stuff. And we ran with it, and every time we pushed the envelope to do No Exit, which I had a great fun doing, The Dresser, Night Mother, The Chairs. These are really great risks. And Palm Beach was responding to that. How lucky am I? So they also help define us, too.
It's funny you said, I'm sorry, Karen, go ahead. Go.
You got to say something, Karen.
Okay, I was going to say,
Give me a hard time.
Trying to jump in there, you know.
two of the shows that will always remain with me as some of the best theater I've ever seen in South Florida. One was No Exit, and one was The Chairs. These are two really difficult pieces to pull off, and both of those productions were just outstanding, and the audiences came. They loved
The
them.
casting was fabulous.
They were.
I want to give the actors in that.
Yeah, I had great
mean,
fun doing
that's-
that with Marjorie and Ninique Guridian, who was one
and
of the
the
founders.
chairs were Barbara
Bradshaw.
Bradshaw and Dan
Dan
Leonard.
Leonard.
Yeah.
And Hand of God, written by Michael McKeever.
Well, there's that.
That was okay. But I'm going to tell you something, too. And that was the first time a New York paper came to see anything in Florida. They said somebody in Florida is doing the chairs, and then he came and he reviewed us, and then went down to see Joe doing the adding machine, and then he went to the other coast, is doing Dancing at Lumisa, and I think, and that was the Wall Street Journal, and
Terry Teachout.
Terry Teachout, and he's coming back for a 6th time to see Old Times this year.
Wow.
But that not only helps the organization, it helps the reputation of our region.
No
Absolutely.
question.
You know?
So,
Here it comes. Okay,
yeah,
here it comes.
When's my next show? No, I'm just kidding. No, you know, with the economic downturn, there have been a lot of theaters closing, and you are you know, the total opposite. You've actually progressed and had been able to move into a new space, beautiful space, by the way.
you.
I used to go to the movies there when I was a little girl.
When it was the
When
Florida
the Florida Theater,
Yeah.
yes. So, and it's nice to walk in there and, you know, the memories and the phone booth that's still there. But I digress. But anyway, how, and you mentioned, you know, fundraising that's very necessary to keep the theater open. How do you manage that in hard economic times? You know, with seeing so many theaters closing because of the lack of funding. What are you doing different?
I wish I could give you this lofty answer and say something really smart right now, but I can't. I can't come up with anything to say. But just being acutely aware of your numbers, and as I said earlier, just, you know, picking a season. We are watching our numbers constantly, and that's probably. You know, Sue Ellen and I both have very strong business backgrounds, but we also both grew up in theater. So we just, all the principles we learned in our last jobs, we know where to, I don't know how to answer it other than just being acutely aware of your numbers. And we've been fortunate in Palm Beach that our fundraising has gone up. I can't answer why. I hope it's because of the work. And also, I think people invest in Dramaworks because, and I think this is a really important part of my beliefs, it's not about me. You don't look at Palm Beach Dramaworks and think Bill Hayes. You look, and I can guarantee you all will agree, you look at Palm Beach Dramaworks and it's about the work, and it's about a lot of people that run the organization. And the reason we were able, when we first went in, to raise $5 million within 8 months is because they were investing in an organization, not in a person. So you need to know that Palm Beach Dramaworks will survive beyond me. So that's, you rarely see me do curtain speeches, and there's no problem with people doing curtain speeches. I just want very, very much for it to be about an organization and about the work, and I think that's why people continue to invest, because they know it will survive beyond me, and they know that the work is good.
Well said.
Does that make sense?
I say it's really an experience coming to anything at Palm Beach Dramaworks. Your sets have been magnificent. There's no skimping. Your lights. The importance of that you just accept it. But I know that sitting down, no curtain, and everybody goes, again, I've said this 3 times already, to say, wow, because each set has been a wow.
As well as your sound and your
everything.
costume design, your technical.
Yes.
I've seen shows where I went, some are better than others, but from a production standpoint, I don't think I've ever seen one that I went, wow, I wonder what happened on that one. How do you do that? How do you get that level of quality?
I'm a picky SOB. I just am, and I have a great staff, and that's really important stuff. Image is so important. You know, even when we renovated the space, we used highly regarded theater consultants, and we analyze how, when you enter the space, the impact it has on you psychologically, how a color of a wall affects your mood, how that bomb is now, you don't have to walk up the stairs to get into the theater, you glide into a space, and all the psychological impact that these things have on you. And of course, when you have this 65-page program and you see that we're heavily supported, what's the image you have of us? And then you sit in a very comfortable chair, and you look at this glorious set, and I'm setting you up psychologically for what you're going to see, and it's going to be really high quality stuff. But that's just part of the business philosophy of image. And also, I just want it to be a great, wonderful theater experience. So, you know, and you're paying for professional theater. I want to give it to you.
And it's working. It's working.
Yeah.
It's working.
And there's not a bad seat in the house. There's not a bad seat in the house, really.
You know, that was, again, very important to maintain an intimate space. One of the big concerns going into this new theater is patrons were very concerned that it wouldn't be an intimate experience. So we needed to bring the house down to 218 seats. And it also is going to pack a bigger punch when you can see a drama in an intimate space.
Sure, where the actors are right there in front of you.
Yeah.
What's one of the best things about being an artistic director in a theater like Palm Beach Dramaworks? What are some of the perks?
It's good to be the king. It's just so much. Just the fact that when I see people rocking the house artistically, and to know that I built this thing that you can have an artistic outlet and be so fulfilled and do not only good work but important work. We're currently doing Of Mice and Men that kids study in school, and I was sharing this with Bill earlier. We've been busing in a lot of high schools and a lot of underserved schools that this is their first theater experience.
Wow.
And I remember my first as a kid was seeing a tour through Syracuse of Mr. Roberts. And I will never forget it because I never had anything like that, and I was so profoundly moved. And we've had the benefit of Mice and Men giving a lot of kids their first real theater experience, and they're leaving the theater crying their eyes out. They don't know what to do with this information, but they're going to remember it for the rest of their lives. And for this particular production, I said, this just has made my job worthwhile, just to touch hundreds of kids in that profound way.
Nice.
You know, so that I think
Is
has
it only
been big for me
select?
lately.
Great answer, yeah.
You
Is
know?
it only select performances that you bus in? It's not every show.
Well, we have bused in the past, but we've had the benefit over the years to bring in kids that are studying this particular work in school. And we've done it with No Exit. It's escaping me. What others? The Doll's House. And then here, in this example, where we tried to bring in a lot of young people that are reading it and studying it in school but don't get the benefit of seeing a full realized production.
Yeah. You never give the impression that you're doing a show that you don't really want to do. In other words, these are all shows that speak to you. It's rare that you've picked a show that you go, okay, we're doing this because we need to feed an audience expectation. And I know you're very conscious of what your audience's perception is of your mission. But I'm always curious, is there a show that doesn't fit your mission that you have in your secret heart of hearts, you know you're never going to get to do, but you go, you know, I would just give my eye teeth to be able to produce or direct such and such.
Yeah.
But before you answer that, can you state your mission?
Oh yeah, that wouldn't hurt.
And yeah, so that the audience knows what the mission of Dramaworks
Well, I'll
is.
just to simplify it, we'll just say our slogan is theater to think about. You know, and that's part of the background too. If you can't define your theater any organization in one simple sentence, then you need to work on defining your organization. I know that's very general, but that's just simply it. And we revive classic and contemporary work. We're going to be doing more and more new works, especially as this other initiative moves forward with developing plays. To answer your question, I have always wanted to direct a really sexy production of Dracula.
Wow.
It was one of my first shows growing up, and it doesn't really fit into our mission, but I thought it would be a really exciting way to draw some kids off the street that hang out or currently getting drunk on Clematis Street, and let them get drunk in my bar and see a great sexy production of Dracula. And
How does it fall away from your mission? I think it's not that poppy or pulpy, is it?
It's classic.
It is kind of a classic.
So I should do it.
And I think you would do a really sexy, smart production of it.
As long as you cast me.
Miss Lucy, Dracula.
Oh, no, I'd be Redfield. I know how I'm
Dr.
cast.
Seward.
I'm not Frank Langella. I want to bite somebody's neck.
You have a few times.
I can see that in July. Okay. And you have concert readings. concert
Yeah,
performances. not-
we do
they are
concert versions of musicals, and Clive Charlton, who did them so successfully at the Caldwell, the former Caldwell, I invited him to do them for us, and he just has done an extraordinary job with it. And I have learned in the summer, and this is the new formula, because what we quickly learned when we did the great concert version of Camelot is there's a concert crowd that is not necessarily a theater crowd. So it was wildly successful in the summer. It cost me a fraction of what it cost to do a full production. I can charge you $35 instead of $60. And people flock in, and this year we polled every audience. Over 50% of the people, it's more like 60, had never been in the theater before.
Wow.
And there's a concert crowd, so it keeps my money coming in during the summer months. An actor's employed. I'm going to burn Clive out. But he's just done a wonderful job with it.
That's wonderful. And the concerts are just amazing. They're really terrific.
We're going to be bringing up your website. We probably have continuously now, too, so that everybody could see what your season is now, which we haven't discussed purposely. But they could read about it.
So,
Thank you.
very quickly, one last question. What's the future of Palm Beach Dramaworks? What's up next?
Tony Award.
There you go. That's a good goal.
Why not?
Now that we're
Why
settled,
not?
now that we're settled into the space, kind of advancing a lot of the programming, and I need to spend a lot more time on it. As I said, I'm trying to start a whole new initiative for developing new works in the studio theater upstairs on an annual basis. Education is really important to me, so getting out into the schools and getting kids to the theater. We often talk over the years about what happens to the future audiences. And I'm not so concerned about that as long as you do good work. I think there's always people looking for something to do. The big crisis is who's going to be on stage. Because there's no drama departments, we're taking it out of the school, and even kids that come out of university, we're encouraging them to do film and television, and stage is going to be in big trouble. So I have a responsibility to get into the high school.
You do amazing work at Palm Beach Dramaworks, and I sincerely mean that. There's some really phenomenal work going on at Palm Beach Dramaworks. There's phenomenal work going on in theaters all over South Florida. To find out what that work is, simply go to floridatheateronstage.com. Thank you so much for joining us today. Special thanks to Mr. Bill Hayes for joining us. Join us next time here on Spotlight on the Arts.